Witches, werewolves, and vampires? What is going on in paranormal romance lately? Molly Harper's Jane Jameson series was the first paranormal romance series I picked up, if I remember correctly. I remember seeing the first book displayed prominently at my library for weeks before I got up the courage to check it out. I just remember being intrigued by the title, Nice Girls Don't Have Fangs. And I ended up really loving it and smashing through the series till I got to Nice Girls Don't Live Forever, book 3, which was actually rather boring, and I just stopped reading the series for several years. I finally picked up book 4, Nice Girls Don't Bite Their Neighbors, and I am so glad I did. This is back to the fun romp of the earlier books. Jane is trying to plan a wedding, and then oops, has a child in the middle of it. That's child with an E at the end. It's a vampire child. She ends up having to turn the kid she used to babysit into a vampire to save his life, so instead teenager in the family. This was an entertaining twist. The book was witty and fast-paced. I'm really glad I decided to pick up Molly Harper again. And I was so excited I immediately picked up Driving Mr. Dead, which is book 1.5 in her Half Moon Hollow series. It's sort of the vampire version of Driving Miss Daisy, except the chauffeur is a female human who drives around vampires during the day in this specially altered vehicle. Colin Sutherland is the vampire client in this case. He's fastidious, stuck-up, and rude. All the ingredients for true love. That said, this was an adorable little novella with great characters, and it just kind of made me bubbly happy. Next up, A Witch's Handbook of Kisses and Curses, the next in the series. Nola Leary leaves Ireland for Half Moon Hollow to find the 4 magical artifacts that will secure her family's continued magical ability. Her new neighbor, Judd Trudeau, turns out to be hot. Not quite as over the moon, pun intended in this case for this one, as some of the others in the series, but it's still good witchy fun. Switching series to the Charlie Davidson series by Dorinda Jones, I read The Curse of 10th Grave. If you've been with me long, you know this is one of my favorite paranormal series, featuring an ADD private investigator slash Grim Reaper slash supernatural powerhouse named Charlie Davidson. These books are so frenetic and jam-packed, as she always has a supernatural plot intermixed with sometimes more down-to-earth detective cases. This is the 10th of the series. It is no exception. There's this homeless girl running for her life, a guy wrongfully charged with murder, and a pendant made from god glass. I love this series more and more every book, and the characters, far from starting to bore me, are becoming more interesting. So I tried a paranormal slash historical romance mashup, The Dark One, Wild Wolves of London, #1 by Rhonda Thompson. And yes, wolf is spelled with a U, cause that's a surname, you see. All the men in the wolf family are all cursed by a mysterious curse. No, really, it's not mysterious. If you can't tell from the title, they're cursed to be werewolves. And the prophecy goes that true love will be their destruction, or maybe their salvation. That part seems to be a bit muddied. Okay, our other half of the romantic duo is Lady Rosalind, who has a truly icky and evil stepbrother who's abusive and trying to sell her to the highest bidder. So, long story short, Wolf Guy has to marry her to save her from her fate. But he's petrified of falling in love with her because, oh dear heavens, they curse. That's all I'm gonna say here. It was a little bit ridiculous. Captured, the Captive Book 1 by Erica Stevens. Arya is captured by vampires and made the blood slave of Prince Braith. Let me quote the Goodreads description. Arya is determined to hate the prince, determined not to give in to him in any way, but his strange kindness and surprising gentleness astonish her. So yes, a tad bit Stockholm syndrome-y here. I'm not sure how I felt about that. But I do have to say, the world building was really interesting, so I went on to book 2. Renegade. In this one, Arya is back at home in the forest but yearns for Braith, and then everyone around her dies. Okay, well, not really, but pretty much. Braith shows up again after doing horrible things after having lost her, but that's okay for some reason. Yeah, not as good as book 1. Allegiance of Honor by Nalini Singh, book 15 in the Psy Changeling series. Yes, we are all the way to book 15. This is one of my favorite series, and I do love it. And I also like revisiting old characters. And I realize by book 15 there are a lot of old characters, but I tend to like to revisit them as side plots to a new set of main characters. This entire book is just a parade of checking in with old characters who are already in committed relationships. The problem with that is you end up lacking in tension on the relationship side. Yes, there was plenty of tension in the overarching world-building storyline that has been going on for all 15 books, but there wasn't any interpersonal tension among our good guys, which doesn't make for the most compelling book. Still, this is one of my favorite series. Looking forward to the next book. So, prepare to be confused. You know how I'm always raving about this Jean Johnson series, There's Not to Reason Why, which despite the slightly misleading covers are not romance books at all. These books have no romance in them. They are hardcore military sci-fi. If you don't want to read entire chapters about military guns of the far future, this is not the series for you. But just to muddy the waters, here is another Jean Johnson book, Shifting Planes. This time the cover is telling you the truth. This is paranormal romance. Either paranormal fantasy or maybe paranormal sci-fi romance, as it's not set on modern Earth, but I can't tell if it's, another planet or just like a mysterious past. Who knows? Tava is the daughter of a human woman and a shape-shifting man, but reared among the humans, she has been raised on stories of how evil the shapeshifters are. After her adoptive father dies, the humans turn on her, but she's rescued by a band of shapeshifters. Are they really as evil as she's been raised to expect? And I'm quite impressed at Jean Johnson's versatility. I will be reading more of her books. This was fun, totally different than her hardcore sci-fi, but just as enjoyable in its own way. My friend Amanda, continuing to help me on my quest to read as many books with ridiculous titles as possible, convinced me to read The Vampire's Mail Order Bride, Nocturne Falls #1 by Kristen Painter. First of all, this title is a little bit misleading. Not the vampire part, this is paranormal. No, the mail order part. Technically, it's a matchmaking service situation, not a mail order bride thing. Totally different. But not as catchy in a title, I guess. Beyond that, though, this had everything I wanted in a ridiculously titled book. Corniness, melodrama, good characters. Amanda, who finally read one of these books with me, hated it, but I appreciated it for being masterful at its chosen genre, which is full-on cornball. I am hooked. So of course I went on to The Werewolf Meets His Match. This one is about feuding werewolf clans and the arranged marriage that is supposed to bring peace between the families. I don't care what Amanda thinks, I still think this series is pretty cute. If a little underwritten, but it was really cute, maybe even better than book 1. And of course, book 3, The Gargoyle Gets His Girl. This one has a gargoyle who is essentially a security guard. Get it? Because he looks like a statue. He's the perfect security guard. And she's a fairy jeweler who ran away when she was a teen. His race used to be enslaved by her race. Plot. Conflict. And the fairy court wants her back. More plot. More conflict. This was not my favorite of the series. Taking the story out of Nocturne Falls totally changed the entire feel of this book. Felt like it was from a different series. Shadowbound by Beck McMaster. I'm a huge fan of Beck McMaster's London steampunk series, so I was so excited to hear that she had a new series out. But I gotta say, for the first quarter of this book, I was unconvinced. Once we got past the cliche, I'm going to sleep with you, then get revenge subplot though, I started to be sucked back in by Beck McMaster's characters to the point where I am quite excited to read book 2. Dance Upon the Air, Three Sisters Island by Nora Roberts. This is a reread for me. I really loved this series the first time around. While this is technically paranormal, it's Nora Roberts, so it reads a lot more like contemporary romance that happens to have magic in it. It's about the descendants of 3 witches who are all drawn back to this island. Each book is about a different character. This one is about Nell, who is fleeing an abusive relationship. Again, on the first read, I loved this book, and I still appreciate Nora Roberts' writing here, and and the underlying storyline of the Three Sisters Island. But this time I got kinda ticked off at Zach, the male lead. And here be spoilers, so fast forward till the word spoiler gets off the screen if you don't want to be spoiled. So Zach gets butthurt and bullies Nell into risking her life, well, it turns out to be a moot point as old ex-husband finds her on his own. It's just kind of a jerk-faced reaction to an abuse victim who is actually in physical danger of her life. Okay, so what books have you reread and totally got annoyed at something you didn't even notice the first time around? And what paranormal books should I be reading next?